Hello, my name is Allie and welcome back to my channel. Today I just want to do a little recap of my Hero's Journey Tarot Challenge that I hosted on Instagram last month. So if you're unfamiliar with my challenge that I was hosting last month, the short version of it is I proposed a challenge to use tarot and oracle cards to answer 30 questions based on Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey theory. So I created 30 questions related to a hero's journey. 30 questions for 30 days in September. So you could, if you chose to, answer one question per day. The challenge was broken up into 3 parts. The first was the call to adventure. Second was initiation. And the third was the return. And each part had 10 questions. So some people did the 1 question a day format, while others broke it up into 3 10-card spreads, and then there were other variations in between. So overall, I thought that this challenge went really well. I was so happy with the number of people who participated, and I got a ton of really good feedback. One thing I would change if I was going to do this challenge again, like maybe next year, would be rewrite question number 14, which was asking you to pull a card to identify your anima or animus power. Now, I made the error of phrasing it within, with like find the animus power within you, and I really don't know what I was thinking when I did that, because I felt like that phrasing it that way was a little too specific and not exactly what I was looking for. Some people, when they read this question, answered it by pulling a card for each, one to represent their anima and the other the animus. And some people just eliminated that word altogether and just sort of phrased it as the power within them. Not really what I was looking for. There were a few people who got it, probably those who either had some previous knowledge of Jungian archetypes, or maybe they watched my video before the challenge when I was proposing it and launching it, because I kind of went through each question and was describing what it is that I meant by that question. So yeah, there was kind of a variety of responses, and I'm not sure everybody really got it. So that was my fault. I need to kind of phrase it better. I'd have to work on that. What I was looking for was if you were female or had a feminine identity, then I wanted you to pull a card to identify your animus, or that masculine counterpart in your life that brings you balance and strength on your journey. And likewise, if you have a masculine identity, then you would pull a card for your anima, sort of a feminine energy or person that brings strength and balance to your journey. So again, like I said, I don't know what I was thinking when I phrased it within. I feel like I misled some people or confused people, or at least misled them from what my expectations were. But you know, really, if they got a good message out of it, it doesn't matter. That's just me being a bit nitpicky. So I want to share a little bit about what was unveiled during my journey challenge, mostly through the cards that repeated themselves throughout this journey. The first card that repeated itself 3 times in my journey challenge, the 8 of Wands. So this came up as where I started on my journey. It came up again as wisdom that I have to offer others. And it came up as how other people see me after my journey. So with all that in mind, you know, starting off with the 8 of Wands energy, I feel like, yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I'm a very busy person. I like to stay busy. I'm very, you know, I have a very packed schedule. I have a lot of goals, a lot of tasks. My to-do list is literally endless. There's always, you know, as soon as I get close to checking things off, I just add a bunch more stuff. I have to, you know, squeeze things into my schedule, and it stresses me out a lot of the time. But I bring it on myself. So yeah, I do kind of live this kind of hardworking, busy lifestyle, always on the go. Um, yeah, and so if we look at this at the beginning and at the end, at least how others see me, from the perspective of others, I haven't really changed that much. So I felt like this journey and this change was a much more internal, something that I am aware of or I am cognizant of, but others may not be fully aware. They still see me as this hardworking, really busy person. But what wisdom I have to offer, I think the wisdom that comes out of this is how I change or how I cope or how I deal with the challenges that come with living this lifestyle, or how I've overcome them, or how I changed, or how I used to live like this, but I've made some tweaks and adjustments, and I get much better results. So that would be the wisdom that I have to offer. Another repeater card that came up was actually the second card. So on day 2, I pulled the Magician. So the first time this card showed up was what dissatisfies me about my current circumstances. You know, why would I be embarking on a journey? There's obviously something that I don't like or some change that I want to make. And the Magician. So this kind of spoke loud and clear to me about my inability to manifest what I want. And if we go back to the eight of wands for a second, you see kind of all these like dandelion tufts like being blown out there. So I feel like that was representing that I put out a lot of energy, a lot of output, but I don't get back a lot of input. So there's not a lot of return on my energy investment. Like all the work that I do doesn't pay as well as I would like it to. So that's how the Magician first showed up. The next time, and probably very significantly, the Magician shows up a second time to let me know that it is the dragon that I have to slay. So the dragon is symbolic of the ultimate villain that tries to stop me from completing my quest. And lastly, the third time it showed up was, what have I learned about myself? So I feel like the Magician is very significant in my journey. First, you know, I have this inability to manifest. Then I have to slay the dragon, which is also the Magician. It's whatever. I feel like it's whatever is blocking me. I've got to figure out what is blocking me from tapping into my inner magician and being a master manifester. But then I learned something about myself. I kind of learned, you know, what it was. I learned how to be the magician. I learned how to unblock whatever was blocking this from coming out within me. So it's significant on my journey. Now let's talk about my quest. Not a repeater card, but came up as, you know, my quest. What is my task? What is the thing I need to accomplish or achieve on this journey? And I pulled the Hangman. So this tells me that I need to stop. I need to pause from my busy life and just look at things from a different perspective. Look at things from a different angle, you know, kind of look at what is my output and what is the input I'm expecting from that output, and try and see if I can unravel the mystery and find the thing that the dragon that's keeping my magician locked up. So that was my quest, the Hangman. So that was interesting. You know, we're getting this story totally unfolding here. Another card that repeated itself, and it only came up twice, but early on, and it was also kind of interesting how this card repeated itself. The first time the Nine of Swords showed up in my Hero's Journey reading challenge was when I asked the question, what prevents me from taking or going on my quest? So I was given this quest, what would stop me from doing that? And so when I saw the Nine of Swords, I'm like, yeah, you know, your typical fears, your typical anxieties, you know, fear of change, fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of admitting that maybe I was doing it wrong all this time, all those kind of ego-based fears that you know, we don't like to admit, or think, you know. Anyway, yeah, your typical fears. So that was what was stopping me from accepting the quest or going on the quest. Ironically, it showed up, I think, just 2 questions later by saying, when I asked, well, what motivates me to accept the quest? What finally convinces me that I need to do this? And I got the 9 of Swords again. So, at first I thought, well, maybe it was something in a vision or a dream that I have that, you know, triggers me or lets me know like what will happen if I don't. And so based on trying to avoid those fears from coming to fruition. But on a second thought, I thought, you know what I think it actually is? I think it is actually the fear of letting fear determine my behavior. Don't let fear determine my future or control my fate. Overcome that. So the fear of letting fear rule me was maybe what the ultimate motivator was. It's like, I'm not going to let fear hold me back. I see myself as a courageous person. So yeah, when this card came up, this is what motivates me. So I feel like that is more accurate, or I can relate more to that message. So interesting. Another card that came up more than once was the Lovers. And this card is really interesting because it came up both times. I interpret this as meaning my husband. So the first one was, who is my mentor or guide? Who's someone I can turn to for advice on my journey? And I got the Lovers. And then the second time was that animus question. What is my animus that gives me balance and strength on my journey? And I got the Lovers again. So I feel like in both cases, this was my husband. So it's kind of indicating that my husband has a significant role to play on my journey, my current journey in this this evolution, or this story that I am living right now. And that's come up actually in a few other readings that I've done unrelated to this tarot challenge, that is, yes, just comes through that my husband is going to lead me somewhere or connect me with people. So it's really interesting. We'll have to see if that actually plays out. Another card, another repeater card that came up in my reading was the Queen of Cups. Now, she showed up first as one of my trials on my journey. So I saw the trials as like training sessions for leading up to finally defeating the dragon. And she was the third trial. So I saw this as, you know, there was this challenge before me to kind of come out of my shell a little bit when it comes to emotions, or feeling exposed or vulnerable, exposing my vulnerable parts, being more open, more emotional, more personal. There was some kind of challenge, and then like some healing from overcoming that exposure, or there was something along those lines. So, and probably also significantly, the second time she showed up was when I asked the question, how have I, or how will I expand my comfort zone as I wrap up this journey? And she came up again. So again, this is about being more comfortable with being more open, more vulnerable, more just opening up, I guess, being more emotional. You know, I've always identified more with the element of air and the suit of swords, and being that more logical, pragmatic, truthful, fact-based person. You know, emotions just kind of make me go, blah. I'm just not a soft, emotional person. So yeah, I can totally see how this this relates or makes sense to me. Whenever I see turtles, that's what always that's what they symbolize to me. They wear their shell, they wear their armor to protect themselves from criticisms and judgments and all those kind of ego fears that, you know, I mentioned with the Nine of Swords card. So you wear your armor, but you don't just retreat. You don't hide behind it, because when the turtle retreats into its shell, it just sits there like a rock. It doesn't grow, it doesn't move, it doesn't experience anything. And so here is the Queen of Cups dancing with her arms wide open, ready to embrace, you know, ready for anything, and her heart is exposed. So you never armor your heart. You keep your heart exposed. You know, you be vulnerable so that you can move forward and experience. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. You have to be willing to lose, to be rejected, to fail. You need to be vulnerable in order to live and experience and feel. So it's becoming more comfortable with exposing myself, I suppose, exposing my vulnerable side, and being a bit more in tune with my emotions and sharing that with others. So that's how my comfort zone is expanded, and I learned that lesson through the third trial. I have some experiences that are uncomfortable for me, but I overcome them, and ultimately, my comfort zone, you know, it's not as bad as I always feared it would be. Okay, and lastly, you know, not a repeater card, but one that was kind of like my most light bulb moment. So, I think I should first mention, so my dragon was the magician. And one of the questions was, how do you slay your dragon? What do you do to slay your dragon? And the card that came up for that was the Page of Swords. So the message that made sense to me, or that I connected with, was I have to ask the right questions. This is it. It's kind of like I have to do a lot of detective work to kind of ask the right questions. My quest was seeing things from a different perspective, looking at things from another angle. So I've got to really do like this kind of like scientific forensic exercise here to figure out what is going on, what is holding my magician back, what dragon is guarding that gate or that cave that's holding my magician self hostage, so that I can manifest what I want. And yeah, I need to ask the right questions and look at things from the right angle and be very inquisitive. And yeah, so that leads to this card that I wanted to mention. The question was, what satisfies me? Now that my journey's over, now that I've finally slayed the dragon, what satisfies me? So looking back on the magician early on was what dissatisfied me. So now that I'm through my journey, what satisfaction have I gained? And the card that came up was the Devil, which kind of made me stand up straighter. And I'm like, what? The devil? And so I sat with this for a while, and I think my first clue that, you know, to my kind of detective work, my puzzle that I have to solve here, was in the Devil. And it was not so much that I'm not able to manifest as much as it's an addiction to my busy lifestyle, to staying busy and working all the time, and this maybe limiting belief or misguided belief that I have to work hard in order to get results. And it's kind of a waste of energy, but I have this attachment to doing that. And so breaking that attachment, or yeah, that is my devil. So when I comparing it to the magician, I think if you did this challenge, compare your dissatisfaction card with your newfound satisfaction card and see if you can get a more deeper message from that, because that's what I got from the Devil. So that was kind of a light bulb, you know, my first, you know, clue in my detective work. that I was not expecting. So other things that stood out on my journey were themes of teamwork, um, doing that, yeah, like I said, doing that detective work, unraveling this mystery, um, doing some forensic investigation into what has kidnapped my magician, and yeah, just kind of acknowledging that at the end of the journey, other people don't really see me any different. To them, I haven't really changed, but to me, I know that the change is more internal. Um, so, oh, very interesting. This was a really, really cool exercise, and I'd love to know what you guys thought. I mean, I've heard from a few people on Instagram with, like I said, really positive feedback, so I'm really excited about that. The other thing I did was I kind of took a tally just to see kind of if there was more suits or more majors. And when it came to the suits, it was actually pretty even across the board. I had 4 pentacles, 4 cups, 4 swords, and 6 wands, but remember, half of those were the 8 of wands that showed up 3 times, and then 12 majors, so pretty heavy on the majors. So this is a pretty big deal. So I feel like that in itself is more encouragement to keep digging, keep kind of figuring out where my magician is hiding, and bring them out and learn how to be a master manifester. So lastly, I just wanted to give some honorable mention to a few Instagrammers who were participating in my tarot challenge, because I thought their posts were really fun or interesting, or they did a really, really good job. And the first one I want to mention is Celine. She goes by the Instagram handle Appalachian Granny Witch. And her photos were just beautiful. Like, just the aesthetics of all of her photos were really incredible. Her story of her journey was really consistent. I think she did an amazing job of sticking with a single story rather than kind of wavering here and there, just really kind of giving a really generic interpretation of the cards. She stuck with her story, which was awesome. And her, she was also using a fairy deck, which scored extra points with me. The next person I want to mention is Andy, who goes by the handle Moxie Magic. I loved that she used the Jung Tarot, as in like Carl Jung, which was a perfect deck to use for this challenge. And with her card draws, she incorporated photos of books by Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell. So I thought that was just really clever and a really nice touch that she did as she told her hero's journey story. Janet, who goes by Celica Ravenlight 1, had a really amusing, she did all 30 days using zombie tarot. So I was, every day, I was amused by, she approached it with a sense of humor. That's a really kind of lighthearted, humorous deck, and she did kind of have some funny responses, as well as some serious ones too. But I just love that she kind of approached this with, some lighthearted humor, and that was really, really cool. And lastly, Gentle Fire Divine, who also has a YouTube channel. She did something really, really unique. No one else in the challenge did this, but I loved that she did. And instead of telling a personal story or using the cards to tell a personal story, she told like a story. Like each card was like a page of a storybook, and the cards were like the illustrated pages, and she just made up a story as told by the cards that she pulled. So I loved that. I thought that was really clever and a really cool way of using the cards, and just illustrates that writers can use the tarot as prompts for writing their story, and using the hero's journey as a template to do that. So it was really, really cool. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who participated. My next video is going to be a video response to Veronica Rose's tarot tag, Inner Stories. which is a perfect kind of segue from my tarot challenge. They're kind of on a similar theme where you're using tarot cards to tell a story. So while I had the hero's journey, she's kind of got this epilogue, climax, prologue kind of format. She's got a 5-card spread that she designed, and I just think it ties in nicely to kind of wrap up my hero's journey that I just completed, or maybe it's going to be an entirely different story that comes out altogether. Well, I haven't pulled the cards yet, so we'll have to wait and see. So until then, guys, stay shiny and keep sparkling. Bye.